On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Aidan Konop, former Wisconsin Badger basketball player, to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Aidan shares his powerful journey through OCD, anxiety, and chronic pain, revealing how he learned to challenge negative thoughts, rediscover confidence, and find purpose beyond the game he loves. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up, wherever you are, whatever you're doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We're in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast and get access to previous episodes on all these podcast platforms at Survive and Thrive 8791. The podcast. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you like what you heard. If there's a topic or guest who would love to share their story, please email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new podcast will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. Before I introduce our guests, I'd like to highlight a couple of websites. CoachDecorallLC.com, where you can book me to come and speak to your place of business, school, or group. Love to do that kind of work. And SurviveandThrive8791.com. You can see what we are doing and the events we are hosting. If you are a business or an advocate for mental health and recovery, we invite you to partner with us through sponsorship opportunities. Please contact us at surviveandthrive8791@gmail.com. This is our guest and episode intro. And according to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Aidan?
Always.
For the third time, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Well, at least in my house, I don't need any of that stuff. I've got my wife, Sarah, and she is always right. So good stuff. According to an AI artificial intelligence overview, while there is no exact annual diagnosis count, health organizations estimate that OCD affects about 1 in 100 to 1 in 200 children. Anxiety is more common, with roughly 9% of boys ages 3 through 17 having a diagnosed anxiety disorder. Today's guest was one of those afflicted with OCD and anxiety. Today, I welcome Aidan Konop to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Aidan grew up in Butler, Wisconsin, a community located 90 minutes east of Madison, Wisconsin. He attended Hamilton High School and is a proud Charger. After high school, Aidan would take his talents to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he would join the Badger men's basketball team. After a year with the team, he was forced to medically retire from the team. Today, I'm so glad you could join us again. Aidan Konop, what is up?
What is up?
Just a little background here. Hopefully we sound pretty good, and normally we do, but technical difficulties, and I got to hand it to my man here, Aidan, for driving up here from today from his place of work. But over the weekend, he made a couple of trips back to try to get this thing recorded. And as I told him, I wanted so much to get him to come on because of the content that he has, and not just one thing that he has worked his way through, and then being an elite college student athlete and high school athlete, but he's worked through some challenges in his life, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. How was the drive over? I mean, how was the drive?
It was good. It was the same as the other two. It was good.
So when you come up, do you come up the interstate then?
I do.
Okay. And
yeah.
There's just a little bit of I think some construction in between here and probably like Lake Mills, but it's pretty smooth sailing on.
Yeah. I would say today was probably the worst, just with the rush hour traffic.
So where are you located for then work today?
Menominee Falls.
Menominee Falls. Okay.
Yep.
And I suppose you got to navigate a little bit of nice rush hour traffic, trying to get out of town at least. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for you. Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's Restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you cook? And if so, genre, style, or cuisine?
I do cook. Very simple, just ground beef, eggs, nothing more than that.
Lots of protein there.
Yes.
Okay. And that's a little different than the normal college student, because you got a couple years left. But I mean, at least for me, college is, if you weren't eating at the school cafeteria and you had to go and start cooking on your own, that was pretty much a staple of Domino's pizza or frozen pizza, mac and cheese, or a heavy dose of ramen.
I mean, you can't go wrong there either.
No, you can't really go wrong there in terms of the taste. But yeah, I'm glad I was a college athlete myself, because I could run some of that stuff off. Probably not so good for the waistline if I wasn't a college athlete. With their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Waunakee, and Mount Horeb. Most communities in Dane County, which encompasses the Madison metropolitan area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. Drum roll. And again, there's that Menards, very acoustically sound table. Menards, whenever you want to jump on, we will take your sponsorship opportunities. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
I have, yes. We went a few years ago for my sister's graduation from Madison. So
yeah, that's a kind of common thing, because one of the guests that we had on here was Carter Gilmore from Heartland Arrowhead, and he was a guest on here. And then I attended his graduation post dinner, and it was actually at the Monona Buck and Honey. So I think that's a kind of a popular place, and especially probably maybe for your family, because you're heading out of town. It's kind of sort of on the way out of town for you guys.
Right.
So on the podcast, our guests follow the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like. We'll get into Aidan's history, what happened to get Aidan on the podcast. And in segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and get into what it's like now. And we discuss Aidan's 5 suggestions for thriving. Segment 1, what was it like before and what happened? You grew up in Butler, Wisconsin, graduating from Hamilton High School, and you are a proud Charger. Tell us about what life was like growing up.
Yeah. So growing up, for those who don't know, Sussex Hamilton School District is kind of like a combination of 7 different villages, towns, cities, and whatnot. I think it's made up of Sussex, Menominee Falls, Lisbon, Lannon, Butler, and I know there's a few others in there too. But I was from Butler, and so in Butler there were not many kids my age. Mm-hmm. So with that, there was a lot of time spent with my older siblings, just with my family in general, or just alone, playing outside or whatnot.
Finding stuff for yourself to do.
Yes.
And getting a little creative.
Yes.
And Butler, I think you mentioned, is about 20 minutes from Sussex.
Yes.
Because I had asked, if you could ride your bike into town if you wanted to hang out with some buddies, but yeah, it'd be a little bit of a jaunt for you.
Yeah, right.
In high school, and we're going to talk about the basketball stuff, because that's kind of right about the middle of where you're starting to experience some of these issues. What were some of your favorite non-sports memories? I did not do a lot of the things my peers were doing, my friends were doing. Again, same thing as my childhood. Like, I was spending a lot of time alone. I wasn't going to prom, wasn't going to homecoming, wasn't hanging out with friends on the weekends. Like, I was by myself or with my family. And so, some of my best memories from that time were probably with my family, holidays, Christmas, 4th of July, things like that. Yeah, and that's okay, because everybody's got their niche, and some people like to get involved in, stuff going on at the school, stuff people like to get involved with things outside of the school, or some people just like to, hey, I like to do stuff on my own. I'm kind of a little bit of a, quote, loner, but just feel more content being by themselves or doing things with their family, and you chose to do the latter. So tell us about your family. You got mom and dad and a couple of siblings. Spin some yarns about them.
Yeah, so my mom and dad, they also grew up in Butler, and my mom, she currently works in real estate. She just started her own real estate brokerage called Juniper Realty.
And if you need a house in the Sussex, Butler, Lisbon, Menominee Falls area, hit up Juniper Realty.
Yes, okay. Juniper Realty. And yeah, then my dad, he works more in construction for, I believe their company is called Midwest Construction.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they've been amazing. My siblings, they both went to Madison as well. My brother's 10 years older than me. He was real estate and finance, which is my major. And then my sister, she's about 5 years older than me, and she was industrial engineering.
Okay. Yeah. And both those two played sports like you did as well.
Yeah, they both played basketball, same exact sports lineup for all of us.
And you have four, not two, but four little dudes that you like to spend some time with. You want to mention them?
Yeah. My brother has two sets of twin boys.
Which is kind of semi-unbelievable. I mean, still have a hard time understanding that, but it happens.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, they're amazing. I think they're 3 and 9 months at this point. But I spend a ton of time with them, just playing with them, being the fun uncle, doing all those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to have not just one set, but then you have two sets, and then they're kind of pretty close in age, and that's got to be it's so cool now because they do all kids do like the funniest things, but then as they start to grow older, and then probably in what do we figure, like 14 or 15 years, we're gonna have all these Konop boys playing basketball.
I know.
Wouldn't it be so cool to see 4 Konops in the starting lineup?
Yes.
A set of juniors and a couple of freshmen, and maybe a cousin maybe in there somewhere.
I was telling my brother we need one more.
Yeah,
one more from him.
He needs one more, maybe a point guard or maybe a post player, anything.
Yeah.
Fill out the team. After high school, you would take your talents to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where you would join the Badger men's basketball team. Quite an accomplishment in itself. Tell us about the recruiting process and why you decided on the Badgers. I mean, having your older siblings go, I think, had a lot to do with it, but there were some other extenuating circumstances that landed you at the Badgers. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think just to start, it's a lot of boys' dreams growing up in Wisconsin to play for the Badgers, playing for your home states. So yeah, it was always a dream of mine. I loved the Badgers, especially when they were in the Final Four, those back-to-back years, 2013, 2014. And so, always had a love for them. But, I never, throughout my middle school and high school years, I never thought one day I would play for them. I never thought I was good enough, never thought that would even be a possibility. But my recruitment really started my senior year, the summer before my senior year. As we'll talk about later, I wasn't, having any exposure the previous summer, the previous year. So that summer before my senior year, me and my mom took a trip out to the East Coast, to a bunch of kind of Ivy Leagues. We went to Colgate, Yale, Holy Cross.
And I'm going to give you some props here too, that you were very strong academically, which gets me to understand why you'd be out on the East Coast looking at those schools.
Right. And so, yeah, I went to those camps, got a lot of exposure, a ton of coaches there. And the only offer I pulled out of that summer was Hillsdale. It's a D2 in Michigan, and a very good D2. But, I always had D1 on my mind, especially at that point. And so I kind of wanted to wait it out, see what else I could get my senior year of high school, my senior season. And that would come in the winter when Northwestern hit me up asking me if I want to be a PWO, preferred walk-on.
Yep.
This was crazy for me just to be on the phone with a Division I coach. That was an awesome feeling, getting that phone call. But I took a visit to Northwestern, loved their campus, loved their facilities.
Chicago. What's to not love about Chicago?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely loved it and wanted to commit there. But they kind of had an issue going on with one of their seniors who wanted a 5th year. He was going to court trying to get another year, and we didn't know how it would turn out. So they told me they could not guarantee me a spot, even though they wanted to. And so I was basically left without a school in April of my senior year. The next month, that May, I was chilling at home one day, and Coach Cerrone, my high school coach, gave me a call and said that the Badgers might be hitting me up sometime either that day or tomorrow.
Shout out Coach Andy Cerrone.
Andy Cerrone, yes. One of the Wisconsin legends.
Yes, he is.
And so later that day, Coach Sharif Chambliss, he called me up from the Badgers and said they would love to have me as a preferred walk-on. I took a visit 2 days later and then committed, I think, the next day or the day after that. And yeah, absolutely loved it. I was stoked and could not have possibly asked for a better situation.
Well, in terms of academics too, you maybe a slight smidge step down, but it's still a Big Ten degree that you're going to walk out of there with in a couple of years. And Wisconsin is by no means a slouch in terms of academics and athletics. So yeah, a lot of things you're checking off, a lot of boxes there.
Right.
After a year with the team, so you graduate, you're at home for the summer, and you spend the year with a team, but you had to medically retire. And I want to have you kind of go through paint a picture for what it means to medically retire, and then talk a little bit about kind of the nagging injury that you still are working through almost a year and a half later. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, when you medically retire, you're not retiring on your own terms. Mm-hmm. It's not something you can control, not something you can help. And what I was dealing with, it actually started my senior year of high school. I was getting these crazy pains. I was getting a bunch of other symptoms throughout my body and did not know what was going on. But it would flare up every time I hooped or lifted or did anything in terms of physical exercise. I was able to get through it for a while. Obviously got through my senior year, got through that summer after. But as I came to Madison and progressed through that freshman season at Madison, it just got worse and worse gradually. Eventually, I would figure out that what I had was called pudendal neuralgia.
All right, pudendal neuralgia.
Yep.
Say that 5 times as fast as you can.
So basically what pudendal neuralgia is it's a compressed nerve, and this causes a whole bunch of problems in your body, muscle tension, spasm, all the above. And it's often underdiagnosed, which is why it took such a long time to figure out what it was. But I've been trying to work at it, trying to get back to being 100%. It's been a long road, but I think I'm almost there. So
something, again, that brought you some highs and lows, the game of basketball. Now you're having to kind of cash your chips in and I'm done. What was that like when you had to kind of come to that conclusion and, so to speak, take that deep breath and say, okay, I think I need to be done? What was that like?
I honestly did not handle it well at first. I was really going through an identity shift where, everyone knew me as a basketball player. That's kind of who I was, especially around campus. And then all of a sudden that's taken from me. It's kind of like, who am I at that point? It took me a while to kind of find myself. There were a few conversations with guys like Brady Ewing and Joel Stave, former Badgers, who recently helped me to get in a positive headspace and a good mindset. But yeah, it was really a thing that just took time. I needed time to adjust to the new lifestyle of no athletics, no working out, no exercise, all of that. And also just having more time on my hands as well, with no practice, no meetings, no community events, no games, like all of that stuff that was kind of just taken from me in an instant, essentially. So
that was kind of like that's the bummer part.
Yes.
Those are some things that kind of kept you busy, and you had to schedule and you had to do all these things. That's a bummer. What has been the best part of not having all of those things? Because there's a flip side to it. And if we want to reframe some things, it's a bummer. Or, you know what, it is a bummer, but you know what, I'm going to look at it a little bit different. So what has been the best part of not having that?
I have more time to focus on academics, focus on, real estate and finance and those subjects that I love. But also, it's opening up some time for me to do this, to, get into the mental health game and kind of start helping people in that sense. But yeah, the thing that's really been getting me through this is kind of the idea that, I've had the anxiety and the OCD, as we'll talk about, but this is just another experience, another thing that I can use to help others in the future. Which
I think and we've talked about this too, is I think you have a very bright future. We don't know where it's going to lead you, but you've definitely got some things where you've gone through some things that you have a great message, and you've got a great story that I think you're going to help a lot of people.
Thank you.
We're going to go backwards now in time here to 6th grade, 11, 12, 13 years old, a time when most kids are going through their physical, mental, emotional changes, etc. And you're going through those as well. And then something else started creeping in there, and you shared with your parents what you were feeling, what you were thinking. Share with the rest of the world and me what you shared with your parents.
I'll start by saying, like, that conversation, that first time that you tell others what's going on, what's happening, what you're feeling, is the most important one you're going to have, or maybe in your life. It's a conversation that has to happen. And I know for me, like, before I told my parents everything, I was so scared and so nervous about what they would think, about disappointing them, about just not being what they thought I was. And I did it anyway because I was feeling so much anxiety, so much pressure. I felt like I had to. And the thing is, when I did tell him all these things, I felt a tremendous weight lift off my shoulders, and I didn't understand how supportive they would be throughout that process. And so essentially what I told them, I can start more so with the anxiety. But as for the anxiety, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety, and I think I have a strong social component of that. And essentially, if I'm in a grocery store, on the basketball court, in the classroom, walking in my neighborhood, wherever I can be seen by other people or wherever other people are present, my anxiety can be present. And so what happens is I'll start, worrying to the extreme about, okay, where should I look when I talk to this person? Where should I put my hands? How should I walk? What am I going to say? What bad things are going to happen? That was really like a key component of it, is like I would always worry about the worst things happening, to the point where I would be at my house before I would go out for a social event, or before I went to practice, went to a game, and I really thought I was going to die if I left the house. And it gets to that point over time. It gradually builds, and it's just not a fun thing to have. And those worries are kind of accompanied by a whole host of physical symptoms. You get the shallow breath, the racing heart, the muscle tension, cold hands and feet, your vision narrows, you sweat profusely, like all of these things happen. And, when a lot of people separate the brain from the body, but they're really one, and you do have this physiological response as well.
What's nice about all of those, some of the people that are listening today, when they see that you're speaking on anxiety or OCD, but the anxiety component, and you started rattling off some of those things that I went through with my own anxiety for a long, long time, and I'm checking those off. It's going to be sooner than later here with some coping strategies that you've applied to your own situation that have helped you, and we're going to talk about those. So during that time, what were you using to cope with some of these symptoms that you were having, maybe even prior to talking with your parents, or certainly after? Was there anything that made you feel a little bit better?
Yeah. Do you want me to touch on the OCD too? Or do you want me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So as for the OCD, I'll try to kind of explain like the mechanism behind it. It essentially starts with the obsession, whatever that may be. That obsession can create anxiety, and you do a compulsion to kind of get rid of that anxiety. And the compulsion can bring momentary relief, or sometimes it even brings no relief at all, but you still do it. But the kind of key component here is that the next time you have that obsession, it's going to be strengthened. It's going to be worse than it was before. And that's why it's so important to resist the compulsions, because when you do the compulsions, the obsessions only get stronger. So I had a whole host of different subsets of OCD: contamination OCD, harm, checking, perfectionism, Piro, order, like just right OCD. I've had all of these throughout my life, and it's kind of morphed over time in terms of which ones I've had. But I would say from 6th grade on, it was all about being perfect. And it was a lot of perfectionism OCD in all facets of my life. It'll affect you, in basketball, as we'll talk about, but even doing laundry. You want to do laundry perfectly, or you want to brush your teeth perfectly. And the thing is, there never is perfect. You'll never be perfect. And so the OCD never goes away.
I'm glad you brought all those things up, because there's different components, like you had mentioned. And then each person's OCD and anxiety can be similar, but there's different parts of it that one might be different for me than it is you, and you from somebody else. And it's important that if you're, thinking about talking, if any of the listeners are thinking about contacting their doctor, they have some of these issues, or they have a loved one, a child that's going through these things, it's important to be educated. And that's what we're doing today, is we're educating our listeners on your situation, and then finding out what each person needs to address, because it's different for you than it is for everyone else. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
One of the things that I think that you had mentioned, and certainly a big component to your life, is basketball. We all started playing basketball at some point because it's fun, it's a game, and then, or very much like you, I wanted to emulate my two older uncles. I had two uncles that were 6 and 7 years older, and they were both on the basketball team, and I wanted to be just like them and have my opportunity to play on the varsity and have everybody come and watch me just like I used to do for them. And you were the same way with your older brother and your older sister. But as you're going to talk about here, basketball became something that also not only brought you some joy, but also brought you some pain and heartache. Talk about some of that stuff in middle school.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was looking up to my brother and sister. I was at all their games, all their tournaments, all their practices, training with them. And all I wanted to do was play varsity basketball. So that was always my goal, that and play for the Badgers. That was always my goal. And it's really what I worked for all my life. Really in 6th grade is when basketball became a double-edged sword, something I loved, something I hated. And that was due to both the anxiety and the OCD. On the anxiety side, it was like every time I was on the court, I thought all the eyes in the crowd, all of my coaches, all of my teammates were looking at me and watching me, making negative judgments about me and criticizing me. And if you can imagine, that puts severe pressure on your performance and how you play. And you're not just playing with muscle memory at that point. You're playing with your conscious brain. You're playing, it's very prohibited, I would say. And so it wasn't fun to play in front of people. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, you could imagine that I would have loved to spend time playing by myself in the backyard where nobody's present. But that's where the OCD would kind of creep in, and I became obsessed about my jump shot. Mm-hmm. And so I really had no outlet in basketball at that point. It was, by myself, OCD comes in. With other people there, the anxiety comes in. But yeah, as for my jump shot, like I would think about it all day at school. I would think about different changes I can make to it in terms of mechanics, in terms of rhythm, all of those things. I would watch videos throughout the day at school. And then I would get home from school and I would watch more videos, talking hours and hours. Mm-hmm. And then I would go outside, set up my camera, record myself shooting, analyze it, set it up again, record, analyze. And it was just this never-ending process to the point where I'm trying to go to sleep at night and I'm not satisfied with the way my shot felt that day. And, I go back in the basement, I look in the mirror, and I'm trying to work on my form. And it's just a never ending obsession that really haunted me in many ways.
Yeah, it was kind of that, like you said, double-edged sword. You loved it, and then you started to obsess about your jump shot, which a lot of high elite athletes and players do, is they look at how can I break this down and make this better. And you were probably shooting 10 jump shots and you're making 8, which is 80%. That's pretty darn good. But I'm going to guess that when you didn't look at the 8 that you made, you looked at the 2 that you missed, and that tended to overshadow the good. And that was probably throughout the course of your life, early life, not just with basketball, but everything else.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember so many times throughout middle school, throughout high school, it felt like every practice where I would come home and tell my parents I'm done, I'm quitting. Like, I'm the worst player on the team. I just can't do this anymore. I put in more work than anybody, but it's not paying off. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why I suck. Like, I was telling them these things every practice, it seemed like, and they couldn't understand it. To them, I'm one of the best players on the floor. I'm making all the right plays, like all of that stuff. And there's just a severe disconnect there. But the person with OCD can't see that. They are so focused on what they can't do, what they're not perfect at, that it really just blinds them.
I think you brought up a really good point. Your parents thought you were one of the better ones in Sussex, and you might have been the best player at your age level, but you were also one of the best players at your age level, not just in Sussex, but in the entire Milwaukee area.
Yeah.
Coming up through, which would land you on the varsity as a freshman after a standout, middle school years. And then you end up on the varsity, kind of achieved your goal and had a pretty good freshman year. You got to play with a future NBA player, Patrick Baldwin, and getting a lot of minutes. He leaves sophomore year. Again, very good year statistically. But what was happening in that sophomore year that started to make you really question some things?
I think sophomore year, by that point I was burnt out. It's been 4 or 5 years of severe anxiety, severe OCD. I think I just kind of hit a wall. But at the same time, I was planning on playing for a new AAU team, after that sophomore season. And, new guys, new team, all of those different pressures really just made it too much for me. And to go along with that, I was spiraling into a severe depression. I was just hopeless. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. The anxiety was so bad that I really just didn't care about anything anymore. And it would eventually lead to suicidal ideation.
And we're going to maybe start that second segment with that, because our listeners want to hear the rest of your story and what has brought you to the podcast. I need to talk about our sponsor one more time. Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask why Buck and Honey's. Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. Aidan Konop is in the Buck and Honey's remote studios today to talk about how he is surviving and thriving while coping still with OCD and anxiety. After his sophomore year, and you just heard him talk about suicidal ideation, he had enough, and enough was enough, and did something that not very many high-level elite high school basketball players do. He's here to tell us what happened and to share the rest of his story and how he has been coping in order to help others. So please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365, and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. The podcast is where we feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Today, I'm glad to be joined in the Buck and Honey's remote studios by Aidan Konop. He is here to talk about how he has coped with OCD and anxiety and still coping. You'll hear the rest of his story and how he's been able to navigate life while being an elite high school and college student athlete. So at the end of your sophomore year, your mental health started going downhill fast. And you just mentioned suicidal ideation. And that is a 2-word sentence to describe something that has not been around for a long time. I want to say maybe 10, 12 years is maybe when I first started hearing that term or those terms, suicidal ideation. Talk us through from your standpoint what that means.
So I think it really comes out of that depression. When I was depressed, I was just laying in my bed all day, missing class. I was done with basketball. I am just, again, laying in my bed, crying, hopeless, sleeping, do nothing but that. And you get to a point where it's just like, I can't take it anymore. I can't do it. Like I said, you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. There seems to be no way out of this. And I started having these thoughts like, man, maybe the world would be better without me. Maybe my family would be better off. I don't think anybody would forget me anyway. And I'm really just started envisioning like how I can maybe plan this out, how I could do it without causing too much distress on the people around me. And again, not a good place to be, but at that time, it just seems like the only option.
So you started that new AAU team, and then along comes the same questions of, am I going to fit in? What are the coaches going to think of me? What are the other players going to think of me? And then you decide to take the summer off and you're not going to play. Then that would lead into your junior year, and you did something that not a lot of kids do. And I want you to talk about that.
Yes. So I had seen, going back to your early question in the podcast, I had seen a ton of therapists throughout my middle school years, and even my high school years. I had tried so many different things, little tweaks to my diet, different holistic medications, different kind of lifestyle adjustments. I was reading every different book on anxiety and watching every video I could on it. But nothing seemed to work. What eventually happened is my mom found this psychologist out of Muskego, Wisconsin, by the name of Dr. Maddock, Dr. Patrick Maddock, and he would end up...
Shout out Dr. Patrick Maddock.
Shout out Dr. Maddock. He would end up changing the entire trajectory of my life, and I mean that in all sincerity. I would not be hooping for the Badgers without him. I would not be sitting in the studio with you if it weren't for him. And yeah, he really just took me through the CBT boot camp, if you will.
The CBT boot camp.
Yes.
Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. Okay.
And yeah, so I started seeing him. I guess we instantly kind of clicked. He had worked with a lot of athletes before, and he was experienced. He knew what he was doing, and he had studied under one of the best cognitive behavioral therapy practitioners. First thing we kind of did, he put me on a SSRI, or he didn't put me on it, but he recommended it. And so I got on that. I was very, apprehensive. I had never wanted to take a medication. I hated everything about medications, but I trusted him, got on it, and slowly ramped that up over time. But kind of with that, we started this CBT. And what it entailed was really the first few months, we wanted to kind of figure out what the root fears were, the root obsessions were, and kind of what was happening. So I kept like a worry log where every time I had an anxious experience or, a very bad obsession, I would write down the intensity, write down the date. And over time, we kind of got to see a few patterns emerge from that in terms of what my fears were. After we kind of did that is when we started what was called dragon busting worksheets. And as he explained to me, the dragon is essentially the thing in your brain, the anxiety that is playing tricks on you, fooling you, making you think things are worse than they are, more likely to happen than they are, and wrecking havoc, really. We had these worksheets, and essentially what would happen is you would have an anxious experience, whether it was in school and basketball, whatnot. You would write down what happened and what bad thing you thought would happen during that experience. And you would rate the intensity of that bad thing. And kind of from there is when the magic happens. You would go into the perspective of the dragon, or at least the mind with the dragon. And you would say, okay, what did the dragon believe made me think was going to happen? What bad thing? You would kind of rate 0 to 100, how bad this thing would be if it were to happen, and how likely you think it is to happen through the lens of the dragon. And then you turn the page and you're onto the scientist brain. And this is the objective, factual brain. It's the truth, really. And you would rate those same things, like how bad would this thing really be if it were to happen? And what are the actual chances of it happening? And over time, what you kind of see is that the difference between the dragon brain and what that is telling you and the scientist brain is just so enormous. And you kind of see through the dragon in a way. And you learn to not trust the dragon anymore.
You also mentioned, that's just great stuff. And I had mentioned to you that I would love to have that just for my toolkit is talking about that, because that puts into simpler terms to understand, especially if you're working with the young athlete like Dr. Maddock was, that you can picture the one that's causing the problems, and then you can also put yourself in that other position of, let's really investigate this now and find out and start seeing those glaring differences. In CBT, you're doing some exposure therapy. Talk about what that was like for you.
Yeah, so you have anxiety, OCD, anxious events, and obsessions are going to pop up no matter what. But with CBT, you also do some purposeful exposures. You start out small, gradually get more frightening, if you will. Starting out, it would be simple things like going to the grocery store with mismatched socks or returning something at a restaurant, things like that. And then over time, it kind of grows and grows and grows, and you start doing harder and harder things. And you learn that these things are really not that bad. They're really not, what your dragging brain is telling you. And with that worksheet, you learn not to trust your dragging brain anymore.
I know when you talked about that before, I could only think of the example that I had was I had a tough time riding in elevators. And once I started to apply some things to my own anxiety, I finally took that big leap of faith and got on an elevator. I would take the stairs no matter where I would go. I'd get a hotel room and it had to be on the first floor because I did not want to ride in an elevator. And I started handling the anxiety a lot better. And then I made that big jump of getting into an elevator and going up and breathing through it and doing some coping strategies. And now I have no problem. I mean, I can go up 100 stories and have no problem, but I couldn't have did that probably 10, 15 years ago. And I've just learned tools in my toolbox. So you start seeing Dr. Maddock, you make your way to your junior year. And again, this is the part where I want you to talk about what you chose to do your junior year.
Yeah, so by kind of winter of my junior year, I was feeling good. So it took kind of, I would say, 6 or 7 months to get to that point where I was feeling good about myself. And those months are just work, exposures, CBT. Again, you got to put in the work to really get to that point. But, in December, I called my coach. And
so let's back up for a second. You decide at the beginning of the season that you're going to continue to work on yourself, but you're not going to play.
Yes, correct.
And you're going to spend some time away from the team or not even go to any practices, and you're still working on yourself. Then what happened?
Yeah. During that time, the fall semester of my junior year, it was tough, I would say, because, everyone at school is kind of wondering, why aren't you playing basketball? Everyone is asking me, like, what happened to make you quit? And I couldn't give them a good answer. I didn't want to tell them the truth. I didn't want to be honest with them. And so that definitely made the anxiety worse at that time. So ironically, as I'm trying to heal, the anxiety is getting worse from that standpoint. But I did end up getting better over that time. And one thing I will mention with this too is, like, I decided in October, November, I'm not going to go on social media whatsoever. So I logged out of all my accounts, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and really just try to use that time for myself to get better and be away from kind of that negativity, that comparison, all of that. So by December of my junior year, I was feeling good, and I called up my coach and told him I want to think about coming back. I'm not ready at this moment, but I think in the near future, it might be a possibility. And so come January, I'm still doing my exposure. I'm still doing my CBT. And we started introducing basketball into those exposures. So I started out, just going to practice, watching from the sidelines, and then practicing, and then kind of sitting on the bench during games, to the point where I was thinking I was ready to suit back up and step on the court.
And then I couldn't wait to get to this point again, because it's still, I think, one of the coolest things. And whenever, and I would suggest you write a book on your experiences, because there's going to be so much great content that you're sharing, not only today, but in that book, that this is going to be the end of the first book, is when you step back on the court. And then kind of walk us through that, because I'm already getting a little tingly, but I'd rather have it come from you, because you're the one who it's your story and you went through it. So talk about that.
I remember it was a home game on our home court against Brookfield East. I believe this was late January. And that game I was going to come off the bench. Obviously, I'm not just going to, get right back in the lineup first game back. But yeah, as I checked in, as I subbed myself in, I was already starting to think through, the whole past year, even the whole past 7 years, all the work I had gone through to get to this moment, get to this point. And it was very emotional. I would end up checking in, and, everyone kind of stood up, clapping for me, student sections chanting, "Welcome back." And, I saw my parents. I think my mom was almost tearing up there, but it was just a very, very special moment, and probably the most special moment of my entire life, because that was kind of the moment where I essentially knew, like, man, I had done the work, I had overcome this, and now it's not going to stop me the rest of my life.
I'm telling you, this is the third or fourth time I'm hearing it now, and it still gets me the goosebumps, and it's just so cool to really encapsulate the last 6 years of your life where you struggled through some things, and mightily, so much so that you had to give up something that you truly loved, but then realizing that it was a love-hate relationship with the game of basketball, and then having to endure those things of why aren't you playing, how come, and why, and this, and then to be able to step on the court, and that was probably the moment when you kind of turned the corner and you started really the healing really started.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
You would then finish out a stellar high school career where you were one of the best now players, not just in the Milwaukee area, but the whole state of Wisconsin and maybe the Midwest. You've got Northwestern looking at you. The Badgers offer you the preferred walk-on. And we've already addressed you had to medically retire because of, let's say it again,
Pudendal neuralgia.
Pudendal neuralgia.
Yes.
Okay. And medically retire, and this last school year, the 2025-26 academic year, you just focused on just being a student. Let's talk about what Aidan Konop is doing right now.
Right now, I am really just busy. I just started an internship at Kohl's Corporate right in Menominee Falls. And so I've been loving my team there. I'm excited to get going there. I'm also taking 8 credits this summer, so trying to stay busy again with the academics there. My sister's got a wedding in July, so very excited about that and excited for both of them. And yeah, just spending a lot of time with my family, friends, and trying to get going with these podcasts and with the mental health stuff too.
And I also, we mentioned this too, that you are interested in not only just appearing on other podcasts, but you're also interested in potentially being a keynote speaker and sharing your story with student athletes, with kids in a hospital, or anywhere where you can help people who are going through OCD, anxiety, or both, or being an elite athlete who has to, because of injury or whatever, stop doing what they love to do. How can people get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me through my Instagram, Aidan_Konop, or my email, aidankonop1@gmail.com. Yeah, like you were saying, like the thing that got me through a lot of my struggle, whether it be the pudendal neuralgia, the anxiety, the OCD, is always the idea that I can use these experiences to help others. And so that was always the thing that gave me hope, even when it seemed like there was nothing to, be hopeful for. And I would love to help out anyone I can, do whatever I can to help out individuals, groups, teams, all the above. So yeah.
Sky is the limit, and I really look forward to seeing where you are in 5 years with this, and whether it's a book or it's keynote speaking or presenting, or you know what, I'm just going to wait and I'm going to focus on my life and job. I think the future is very bright for you no matter what. So
thank you.
Yeah, good luck to you. This is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, and pencils and jot some things down. Here are Aidan Konop's 5 suggestions that have allowed him to survive and thrive with an OCD and anxiety diagnosis, as well as dealing with the pressures of being an elite basketball student athlete. Here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style, and you can still hit a softball?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. Well, like I say, maybe I'll feed it and try to hit the bat. Okay, here's what you shared, and these are Aidan Konop's 5 suggestions to survive and thrive. Number 1, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Go ahead and hit that. 60 seconds or less.
We talked about it before, but CBT, I really think is the only way. You have to do the work if you want to overcome your anxiety. There's no quick fixes. I know I got stuck in the rabbit hole of trying to find the quick fixes, reading these different books that are promoted and watching these different videos, but I don't think there are any quick fixes. If someone promises you that there is a quick fix, don't believe them.
Good point. Number 2, exercise. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, this one's really for anyone, but exercise has been shown to be as effective or more effective than SSRIs in terms of depressive symptoms. And I think it can just do wonders for anyone struggling with OCD and anxiety in terms of clearing your head and making you feel good, giving you those feel-good endorphins.
Mm-hmm. Movement is medicine.
Yes.
Number 3, mindset. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I thought it was pointless at first when Maddock first kind of started talking about these things. But kind of the first mindset we adopted was the idea that anxiety is like a friend. It's not an enemy, but it's a friend that you no longer need anymore. And so the more you oppose it, the more it's going to affect your life. You want to treat it like a friend, but a friend you no longer need. The second one was kind of the idea that every time you're talking about what you're going through, use the term or use the phrase I think instead of I feel, because it's just easier to work with thoughts than it is with your emotions. And thoughts are what create your emotions. And I would say the last one was,
I think this one's my favorite.
Yeah, this is a good one. If you're going into a situation, a social situation, or something you're nervous about, you tell yourself I'm excited instead of I'm nervous. And what Dr. Maddock told me was that these two feelings run on the same neural pathways, but the way you frame it shapes the way your body responds. If you tell yourself you're excited, you'll be excited. If you tell yourself you're nervous, you'll be nervous, and your body will show it.
That's such a good, just the way you talk about it and present it. It's pretty simple, and it can do so much for a person who suffers from anxiety. Is just that reframing of just really one word, nervous to excited.
Yes.
Good stuff. Number 4, breath work. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah. Breath work was something I had started back in 6th grade. I remember getting like the Calm meditation app and kind of doing some things with that. And I think it helped momentarily during those times. I never found meditation to be very effective. And I actually learned later on that meditation can be bad for people with OCD in terms of, the more you meditate, the better your focus is, and the more you can focus on your obsessions in a weird way. And so I just do breath work now, no meditation, just breath work, and really just diaphragmatic breathing. I do some Wim Hof breathing, things like that. And I think it's very effective at helping you with your anxious symptoms.
Mm-hmm. You snuck in there Wim Hof.
Yes.
Yes, Wim Hof. Look him up. He's got some good breathing techniques.
Yes.
Much a little bit different than some, but good stuff.
Yeah.
And number 5, affirmations. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, affirmations I think are something that's great for your subconscious. I would do these and I still do these every morning, where I have just a bunch of note cards, flip through them, and essentially what they say is, I see beauty in imperfection, going after my OCD. I welcome uncertainty. I enjoy social situations, things like this, where you're kind of retraining your subconscious in terms of what you want to be.
Yeah, those of you that are listening today, Aidan gave you his email address. Reach out to him on Instagram, and I think he is the person that you want to get in touch with, just to pick his brain and just share some of these things that have gotten him going up the hill, and then now maybe even cresting and going down the other side. I think you'll still have to deal with this the rest of your life, you think?
Yeah, I'm going to be a lifer. It's something that doesn't go away for good, but like we were talking about off air, like you got to build your toolbox, and the more tools you have, the better off you'll be. And in terms of managing your anxiety or other mental health disorder.
Yeah. Well, very well put. What an episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your approach to life and how you managed to navigate life after coping with some tough stuff, in that tough time anyway. That 6th grade is lots of changes, and then you're dealing with that, plus also a mental health diagnosis that you would eventually get. Is inspiring how far you've come. And again, I knew of your story and then looked into it and followed it when I saw the connection of older brother, my son playing basketball, and then I knew your parents from that time. And it's a feel-good story now. When I first heard about it, I just genuinely felt, gosh, that's such a tough thing to, and then now to hear it from you that you had to give up basketball for a certain amount of time, but you did it for the right reason, to work on you.
Yes.
By sharing your story today, I guarantee you will help someone to cope just like you have. Our call to action, Aidan Konop just shared his story and how he has lived a very, very good life despite what was thrown at him and his family at an early age. He has remained upbeat and positive, and just from getting to know him now, it seems like he's just that kind of guy, upbeat and positive and looking forward to his future. He wanted to share his story and how he has gotten to where he is today. Here are Aidan Konop's 5 suggestions to survive and thrive. Number 1, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Number 2, exercise. Number 3, mindset. Number 4, breath work. And number 5, affirmations. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts? Aidan Konop.
I think I kind of laid out the framework that I use to kind of overcome my anxiety, my OCD, but it really is a trial and error. Can't be for certain that these things are going to help you, but I think it's an amazing blueprint at least.
It is.
And something that you can at least try and apply to your life. But yeah, I just want to, thank everyone who's got me to this point. Mm-hmm. My parents, my siblings, future brother-in-law, sister-in-law, Dr. Maddock, all my high school coaches. Yeah, everyone who was there with me, who supported me and who really understood. So yeah.
Yeah, I think sky's the limit for you, and I think you're going to help a lot of people along you've had a tough journey, but you've got through it. And sometimes in order to get through things, you got to go through them. And now you have a big toolbox to be able to handle these things. And some people are out there and maybe they stumble upon this podcast and they're going to hear some really good things and some inspiring things as well. So Thanks again. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.